What exactly is the status of the PlayStation 5 Jailbreak, and are we going to be able to play homebrew or piracy anytime soon? Hello and welcome back to Gears and Tech. If you're short on time, let me say this very simply. In 2022 and in 2023, cracks started to show in the PS5 security. Unsigned code execution is possible on almost every firmware, but a full jailbreak is still only a distant dream at this point. It turns out this system is a lot more locked down than we originally thought. If you have more time, then why don't you stick around for the long story? Let's start by getting up to speed on the PS5 jailbreak status. Here are some of the key things that happened over the past few months around PlayStation 5 security. In late 2022, a kernel exploit was released for the PS5 impacting firmwares 3.00 to 4.51 included. To be more precise, firmware 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.21, 4, 4.01, 4.02, 4.03, 4.5, and 4.51 are supported for kernel access by using a vulnerability in the Blu-ray player and one in WebKit known as the IPv6 exploit. Both of these were disclosed by The Flow. He is well known in the hacking community and has been instrumental in releasing some of the exploits for the PlayStation 5. Unfortunately, after gaining this kernel level access, the scene progressively discovered how much more secure the PS5 is than the PS4. With even a kernel exploit, this is not enough to properly jailbreak the console. So real quick, let's talk about the two types of exploits. Most systems have two modes, and hence we usually have two types of exploits. The first would be user mode. This is a special sandbox that is set up on all recent consoles. It has limitations in place that allow the software to run as long as it follows specific rules. In user mode, you can usually expect reduced system RAM, capped processor speed, capped GPU or graphics card speed, limited cooling profiles, and a lot more. When a user mode exploit is discovered, we are limited to what we can do within the system by the restrictions of the sandbox rules. The other option is kernel mode. Kernel mode is basically the same access as the manufacturer themselves would have. With kernel mode access, you have the ability to access full processor speed, all system RAM, all system storage, full GPU power. Many times we can access overclocking, we can access fan control, and much more. Typically, having kernel mode is all we need to pack up a fully functioning jailbreak, which allows end users to run homebrew and piracy. But wait, Sony has also added a properly implemented hypervisor. Hypervisor is like the God mode over the entire system. With a kernel exploit, we do have the ability to go into the system and look around, but the hypervisor double checks everything that you do and can cancel your ability to run anything. Hypervisor is looking for authority for you to run commands or perform any functions. Without that authority, we can't actually do anything. Now that I have totally confused everyone, let's move on to the more recent exploit, where what you just learned is going to be very handy for the Mastercore exploit. Now the Mastercore exploit, it works on both the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. A fully functional implementation was released early this year, which can now be run by anybody that wants to try it out. This user mode exploit uses a vulnerability in PlayStation 2 games running on the PlayStation 5. It allows PS4 level user mode homebrew and PS2 ISO loading. To our knowledge, this exploit isn't patched as of the latest PS5 firmware, which at this time is version 7.2. Much of the more recent PS5 progress has been made by hacker Seatbelt. Unfortunately, early this year, Seatbelt announced he would be leaving the PlayStation hacking scene. Before leaving the scene, he shared multiple PS5 critical vulnerabilities with Sony through their bounty system. So this is a program set up through Sony that pays real cash for vulnerabilities that are shared with them. These vulnerabilities were patched in firmware 7.2. So this makes firmware 7.2 particularly interesting, and a comparison of firmware 7.01 to 7.2 could lead to an understanding of what those vulnerabilities are, especially since CTERT did not publicly disclose them. So what is required for a PS5 jailbreak? Historically, hacking a system typically requires two main things. First, a way to run unsigned code, so what we would usually refer to as a user mode exploit in the console hacking scene. And second, some sort of privilege escalation to gain full control of the console, what is typically called a kernel exploit. The ins and outs of how those two aspects are achieved can depend on the target system, but that is the general gist of it. In the case of the PS5, though, we've found out that there's much more than that which is needed. Although the kernel exploit has given some access to the console for hackers, that access remains limited because of the multiple mitigations in place to secure the console. This includes the hypervisor, of course, but there have also been other security features discovered that are proving to be a challenge. To summarize the current status, from everything we've discussed so far, people on PS5 firmware up to 4.51 have higher chances than others to see a full jailbreak on their console. As always, for the purpose of hacking a console, staying on a lower firmware is always the right idea. The PS5 has been especially hard to crack because of a discovery on how the security and mitigations in place prevent privilege escalation on the PS5. It seems that Sony tried to make it similar to Xbox security, where there is a hypervisor and a virtualized app container. So even if you get a kernel exploit, you can't immediately pirate the games and run them. Hypervisor seems to be locking up registers when it detects unauthorized users poking around in the kernel, and there even seem to be other mitigations which make it 100 times harder to get that far. So, PlayStation 5 Jailbreak, what is the ETA? Although the release of the kernel exploit late last year raised hopes for the scene, it's clear at this point that the PS5 is fairly secure and that a traditional jailbreak might not be in the cards anytime soon. However, there is an existing kernel exploit that works up to firmware 4.51. This allows the real hackers in the scene to play and explore. Also, with the major update from firmware 7.01 to 7.2, there is hope for a breakthrough on firmwares up to 7.01. And let's not forget the Mastercore Exploit, giving us basic level of unsigned code execution on all firmwares. All these options might provide ways to achieve some level of user-friendly homebrew execution for end users. However, there is no chance of pirated games on the system anytime soon. In conclusion, as of now, no jailbreak for the PS5 has been released, and if you come across anyone claiming they have one, they are most likely lying to you, possibly for profit, and never ever click on their surveys. The likelihood of a full-fledged jailbreak, which would mean hacking the secure PS5 hypervisor, is very, very thin. Add to that Sony's vulnerability bounty program, which pays hackers for disclosure of vulnerabilities. There is very little chance of a real hack coming out for us end users. Now that I have totally shattered your dream, how about a small sliver of hope? The PS5 is impacted by multiple vulnerabilities of various severity levels. Many are already known and the exploits are out there. Some of them are not publicly shared yet. The scene has demonstrated that unsigned code execution is definitely possible, but it is still very limited. At the very least, in the not so distant future, we could expect some sort of PS5 homebrew environment using the tools that are already available. Never say never though, and when the situation evolves, we'll do our best to share the info in a way that is easy to understand. We are not all coders or security experts after all. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video. We hope you enjoy the content in this video, and we'd love to have you come back. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And for those subscribers who are looking for that extra special thing that you can do to support this channel, consider joining our members group. That's where we're building this community, the Gears and Tech community, where we can all enjoy content together. You'll get special perks, which we'd love for you to check out by clicking the link down below. For those of you who are just happy to watch the video, that's okay too. You can check out some of our other content right over here, where we've got some previous videos that have already been uploaded and enjoyed by many of our viewers already. We do hope to see you again. This has been Gears and Tech. Have a great day.